Beneath the sun-scorched travertine of the Flavian amphitheater, a place we thought we knew, a whisper from the past has finally broken its silence. For nearly 2 millennia, a secret lay entombed within the very bones of the Colosseum, a forgotten artery carved into its heart. Archaeologists, in a moment of sheer serendipity, have unveiled a hidden passage, a corridor leading directly to the emperor's private viewing box, the Pulvinar. This discovery is not merely about architecture. It is rewriting our very understanding of how Rome's elite experienced the crimson-stained rituals that defined an empire. For centuries, this arena has stood as a monument to both human ingenuity and our capacity for brutality. We know its grand arches, its labyrinthine underground chambers, the Hypogeum, where gladiators and beasts awaited their fate. Yet, despite this familiarity, the Colosseum still holds its secrets close. Imagine the scene. The emperor, leaving behind the clamor of the Forum, slips into a private, stone-lined corridor. The deafening roar of 80,000 spectators becomes a muffled, distant thunder. Here, shielded from the masses, he makes his way unseen to the seat of ultimate judgment. This was never just a path of convenience. It was a conduit of absolute power. The revelation came during a meticulous restoration, a delicate effort to preserve the monument's fragile grandeur. While scanning sections long believed to be fully mapped, researchers stumbled upon an anomaly, a sealed-off passage hewn directly from the living stone. Dust, rubble, and the profound silence of ages had concealed it. But as light flooded its interior for the first time in nearly 2,000 years, they realized they were standing in the very footsteps of emperors. Until this moment, scholars could only speculate on how the ruler accessed his exclusive box. Did he ascend grand public staircases, a god among men? Or were there hidden lifts, mechanical contrivances to elevate him? This corridor provides the tangible, chilling proof. Rome's rulers moved with discretion, shielded from the gaze of the tens of thousands arranged in a perfect hierarchy of Roman society. For an emperor, every public step was a performance, a display of authority, or a risk of perceived weakness. This passage solved that dilemma, ensuring he appeared only when the spectacle demanded it, emerging into the light not as a man, but as a divine arbiter. The Colosseum itself, a marvel of engineering completed in 80 Common Era under the Emperor Titus, was a mirror of the world it commanded. Senators, Vestal virgins, merchants, and slaves each had their designated place. But the emperor's box was the pinnacle, the throne from which all life and death in the arena was ultimately decided. This hidden path was the final, crucial piece of that elaborate stagecraft, a reminder that true power is often that which moves, unseen, just beyond the veil of the world we are permitted to see. With a flick of the imperial hand, the games would begin. But how the emperor arrived to give that signal has, for millennia, been a matter of conjecture. We imagine him processing through the crowds, a river of purple and gold parting the sea of humanity. The truth, however, is far more theatrical. The existence of this private passage underscores the meticulous, almost obsessive choreography of Roman power. The emperor was at once the ultimate spectator and the ultimate spectacle. Recent findings now add a breathtaking layer of intrigue to this hidden world. Along the damp, cool walls of the corridor, archaeologists discovered traces of ancient pigments. This suggests it was not merely a functional, utilitarian tunnel, but a canvas designed to impress an audience of one. Faint, ghostly hues of cinnabar red and shimmering gold leaf hint that even in secrecy, the emperor's movements were wrapped in an aura of grandeur. This was never a simple shortcut through the dark. It was a gilded artery of imperial prestige, pulsing with the lifeblood of absolute authority. Yet this very revelation deepens the mystery that clings to the fled beneath the dust of ages. What else still lies beneath Rome's ancient, weary stone? The hypogeum, that sprawling subterranean labyrinth with its cages for wild beasts, its intricate pulley systems, and its cleverly hidden trapdoors, continues to yield its secrets decades after being unearthed. Could there be more clandestine routes? Perhaps even shadowed pathways used by gladiators, or by performers waiting in the terrifying silence before being lifted into the roaring light? The rediscovery of the corridor to the Emperor's box fundamentally reshapes how we must picture the games themselves. As the crowd of 50,000 thundered and the sand of the arena darkened with blood, the Emperor would emerge, not from among his people, not from a public entrance, but from the very bones of the Colosseum itself. This entrance was as much about political theater as the mortal battles waged below. It reinforced the carefully constructed, almost divine image of the Emperor, separate, untouchable, appearing almost supernaturally at the most dramatic moment. But here we must consider the profound paradox. While the Emperor enjoyed such cloistered luxury, the games themselves were fueled by unimaginable suffering. Directly below his gilded passage, prisoners of war and condemned gladiators prepared to fight for their survival. Exotic animals, captured and imported from the farthest reaches of Africa and Asia, roared in the darkness of their cages, awaiting a violent release into the blinding sun. The Emperor's hidden path is a stark, physical reminder of the unbridgeable divide between Rome's rulers and those who were sacrificed for their entertainment. Archaeologists working on the site believe this is only the beginning of a new chapter. With advances in three-dimensional scanning and ground-penetrating radar, more hidden chambers and forgotten corridors may yet be revealed. Each new discovery adds a complex layer to our understanding, not just of the Colosseum's revolutionary architecture, but of the very psychology of empire. The Romans understood, perhaps better than any civilization, that power was not only enforced by the sword. It was performed in stone, in spectacle, and in silence. This newly uncovered passage tells a silent story of absolute control, of calculated appearances, and of the Emperor's existential need to remain both ever-present and forever out of reach. It reminds us that even in its shattered state, the Colosseum is alive with secrets, still whispering the lost language of empire. And if one corridor, one artery of power, has remained concealed for nearly 2,000 years, we can only wonder what other truths, and what other ghosts, are still waiting for their moment to emerge from the stone. Beneath the sun-scorched stones of Rome, history is not a static thing. It is a presence, a weight. What else, one must wonder, waits in the shadows of its greatest arena? The recent uncovering of a hidden passage, a secret artery that once led directly to the Colosseum's imperial box, reminds us just how many secrets still lie dormant beneath the city's skin. But now, archaeologists have stumbled upon something even greater: an entire world, a Vatican palace, buried and forgotten. What they found there is rewriting our understanding of a city's hidden past. It is a sweltering afternoon. In the Piazza San Giovanni in Laterano, the air shimmers with heat and the drone of traffic. But beneath the chaos of the living city, a team of archaeologists crouches in the dust. With the patient, almost reverent sweep of brushes and trowels, they reveal something astounding. The ghost outline of massive stone walls, silent for centuries. This is no common ruin. These are the bones of a long-lost papal palace, a discovery that has sent a tremor through the world of archaeology. The find, as is so often the case, happened almost by accident. In the lead-up to the Vatican's Jubilee year of 2025, construction crews were breaking ground, laying new infrastructure for the millions of pilgrims expected to flood the Holy City. Suddenly, their bulldozers and shovels struck something unyielding, something far older than a modern pipeline. Just a few feet beneath the soil lay a complex of ancient walls and foundations, a time capsule sealed for an age. A secret medieval papal residence hidden in plain sight right beneath the feet of ordinary Romans on their daily commute. Experts, summoned to the scene, soon realized the staggering significance of what had been unearthed. The age of the walls, with sections meticulously dated to between the 9th and 13th centuries, pointed to one legendary place, the fabled Patriarchium. This was the original papal palace, the residence of the popes for 1,000 years, long before the Vatican as we know it ever existed. It was, effectively, the First Vatican, the nerve center of the medieval church. Its halls, now filled with earth, once echoed with centuries of prayer, of whispered intrigue, and the thunderous proclamations of papal coronations. To understand how such a seat of power ended up here, buried and lost, we must journey back to the 4th century. In the year 313, the Emperor Constantine the Great, after his fateful vision of the cross in the sky, legalized Christianity across the Roman Empire with the Edict of Milan. Soon after, in a gesture that would change the course of Western civilization, Constantine gifted the Bishop of Rome an imperial property on this very spot. Historically, this plot of land had served a very different purpose. It was the barracks of the Equites Singulares Augusti, the elite Roman cavalry who had served Emperor Maxentius, the pagan rival whom Constantine had so decisively defeated at the Milvian Bridge. In a symbolic twist of almost poetic justice, the stronghold of a fallen emperor, a bastion of the old pagan order, was given to the nascent church. It became the cradle of Christian Rome. Here, Constantine founded a grand church, the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, the oldest and highest-ranking of the 4 papal basilicas, the mother church of the entire Catholic world. And next to it, he established a palatial residence for the popes, a place from which they would command a spiritual empire that would outlast Rome itself. For a millennium, this was the heart of it all. And then, it vanished. Lost to fire, to earthquakes, and to the shifting tides of papal politics that eventually moved the seat of power across the Tiber to Vatican Hill. The great Patriarchium was built over, forgotten, its existence relegated to dusty manuscripts and scholarly debate. Until a bulldozer, preparing for the future, accidentally uncovered the deepest past. Each stone now being catalogued, each fragment of fresco, is a word in a lost sentence. It speaks of a time when this ground was the center of the world, a testament to the idea that in a city as eternal as Rome, the past is never truly dead. It is merely sleeping. Before the Vatican was the seat of Western Christendom, another palace held that title. Its origins, however, were far from imperial. It began as a relatively modest complex, a seed planted in the soil of a newly tolerated faith, centered on a single monumental audience hall. a structure so vast it was often simply called a basilica in the early records. For centuries, this was the Lateran. As the decades bled into centuries, Christianity itself transformed, rising from a persecuted sect to the very soul of the Roman Empire. And as the faith grew, so did its palace. The Lateran metastasized. It became a sprawling, labyrinthine compound of private chapels echoing with chant, opulent residences for the Vicar of Christ, and solemn council halls where the doctrines of a continent were forged. For over a millennium, from the twilight of Rome to the apex of the Middle Ages, this was the true center of the Christian world. Dozens upon dozens of popes would call this place home. But to imagine a life of serene contemplation within these sacred walls would be a profound mistake. The Rome of the Middle Ages was a cauldron of chaos and violence. The very stones now being unearthed beneath the modern piazza tell a story not just of a palace, but of a fortress. Archaeologists look upon these structures with a trained eye, noting how builders had desperately reinforced them with massive two-for-stone blocks. The ghosts of older Roman buildings, scavenged and repurposed for a new, more dangerous age. They see buttresses, not for elegance, but for strength. Muscular sinews of stone added as clear, unmistakable signs of a defensive design. History corroborates what the stones confess. Between the 9th and 10th centuries, the horizon was often dark with menace. Saracen raiders swept up from the south, their incursions a constant, terrifying threat to the city's exposed outskirts. Yet the greatest danger often came from within. Rome's own powerful aristocratic families, the Orsini, the Colonna, were locked in bitter. Generatio install one's own family member on the throne of St. Peter was the ultimate prize. In response to this relentless pressure, the Pope's Lateran palace was hardened, fortified, transformed into a castle. The thick, unyielding walls now murder at the gate, and from the rival warlord living just across the Tiber. One excavated section has revealed a long, straight wall that scholars believe once encircled the entire palace complex, forming a formidable stronghold around the basilica and the papal apartments. These stones were the silent witnesses to a brutal paradox, an age when the shepherd of the flock needed his own personal fortress to survive. Time, however, proved to be an enemy no wall could defeat. In the early 14th century, a crisis of faith and politics ripped the papacy from its ancient home. In the year 1305, Pope Clement V, a Frenchman bowing to pressure from French kings, made a fateful decision. He relocated the entire papal court to Avignon in France, beginning the infamous period known as the Avignon Papacy. For the next 7 popes, for nearly 70 years, Rome was a city without its pontiff, a body without its head. The once grand Lateran palace, abandoned by its master, fell into a deep and agonizing neglect. Its halls grew silent, its courtyards overgrown. Then came the final indignities. A series of tragic fires and violent earthquakes struck the complex during this period of abandonment, reducing much of its ancient splendor to scorched timber and shattered marble. When the papacy, under Pope Gregory XI, finally returned to Rome in 1377, the delegation was met with a heartbreaking sight. The old palace, the home of popes for 1,000 years, was in such a catastrophic state of disrepair that it was practically unusable. A new beginning was needed. The popes of the dawning Renaissance turned their gaze to another of Rome's 7 hills, to the Vatican and the monumental basilica built over the tomb of Saint Peter. A new chapter began, and the Lateran was slowly, inexorably forgotten, its ruins buried, paved over, and lost to memory. What lies beneath our feet is rarely just dirt and stone. It is the sediment of ambition, of faith, of fear. These excavated walls are more than an archaeological curiosity. They are the physical record of a forgotten world, a testament to an era when the holiest of men lived under constant threat, and the House of Ground can be reclaimed by the inexorable march of time. For 1,000 years, it was the heart of the Western world. Not the Vatican, with its grand piazza and Swiss guard, but the Lateran, the Patriarchium, the mother and head of all churches, the official residence of the Bishop of Rome. From these halls, popes governed a spiritual empire, their authority echoing from Ireland to the Holy Land. But empires, even spiritual ones, can shift their centers of gravity. In the turbulent 14th century, the papacy abandoned Rome for Avignon in France. When the popes finally returned, nearly 70 years later, they found a city in ruins. Their ancient Lateran palace, ravaged by devastating fires and profound neglect, was little more than a shell. A decision was made. They would relocate to a different part of the city, a location they deemed safer, more defensible, and more suitable for a papacy determined to reassert its power. From that moment, the Vatican Hill, with its proximity to the tomb of Saint Peter and the formidable Castel Sant'Angelo, eclipsed the Lateran. The once majestic patriarchate, the seat of power for a millennium, began its slow, inexorable slide into obscurity. As the need for a defensive papal fortress waned, the sturdy, imposing walls of the Lateran complex lost their purpose. They were no longer a symbol of strength, but a relic of a bygone era. Over centuries, they were systematically dismantled, their stones repurposed, or simply buried and forgotten, their legacy preserved only in dusty chronicles and fading maps. A ghost beneath the Roman pavement. Until now. In a city where every shovelful of earth is a gamble with history, archaeologists began to probe the square beside the ancient archbasilica. What they found was not just another ruin, but the phantom limb of the papacy itself. A honeycomb of ancient rooms and corridors began to emerge from the dirt, the very foundations of a lost world. Authorities have hailed it as a discovery of extraordinary importance for Rome's medieval history, noting with some astonishment that no extensive excavations had ever been carried out in this specific area before. The Italian Minister of Culture, Gennaro Sangiuliano, praised the find as yet another profound demonstration of the richness of Rome, calling it an inexhaustible mine of archaeological treasures. And as one looks down upon the intricate web of chambers being revealed, it is hard to disagree. Rome has long been called the Eternal City, and here we see precisely why. Its history does not end. It merely accumulates in layers. Standing at the very edge of the trench where medieval popes once walked, where decisions that shaped nations were made, one can almost hear the echoes of that distant age. As Minister Sangiuliano observed, it feels as if every single stone speaks to us, eager to tell its story. This unearthed palace is far more than an archaeological marvel. It is a physical bridge spanning the chasm of time. It links the age of Constantine, who first gifted this land to the Church in the 4th century, to the brutal, fractious power struggles of the medieval papacy, and from there to the modern world that grew from those foundations. It is a stark, tangible reminder that history is not gone. It is all around us, quite literally under our feet, shaping the present in ways we often fail to realize. In the heart of a contemporary city, amidst the roar of traffic and the clamor of daily life, an ancient voice has whispered up from the ground. A palace of popes, once lost, now found. The revelation of this forgotten patriarchate invites us to reflect on the sheer resilience of heritage. Rome is the ultimate palimpsest, where layers of pagan empire, nascent Christianity, and ecclesiastical might coexist, one story written upon the other. Each new discovery adds another verse, and even today, towering beside this very excavation, the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran remains the Pope's official cathedral, his seat as the Bishop of Rome, a living, breathing monument to the power that once resided in the earth below. The unearthing of this palace does not merely fill a gap in our knowledge. It reminds us that our world is built upon forgotten worlds, and that the past is never truly past. It is merely waiting. While archaeologists unearth the physical past, a far more shadowy legacy lies just beyond reach, locked behind the sealed doors of the Vatican. For beneath the holy edifice of St. Peter's Basilica rests a repository of intrigue, a veritable vault known as the Apostolic Archive. Here, history is measured not in years, but in miles. An estimated 53 linear miles of shelving hold documents stretching back to the 8th century. This is no mere library. It is a labyrinthine collection where the whispers of emperors and kings are preserved on parchment, where the fates of nations were decided in a single papal bull. At first glance, it appears a simple, if monumental, historical record. But a closer look reveals so much more. For in these endless corridors, history is not merely stored, it is guarded. And one begins to wonder what stories are told by the empty spaces on the shelves. What secrets are protected not by ink, but by silence?